parents just tend to want to get an apology or just to be sat down and communicated with.
You can't punish the child for the parents' mistakes.
He knows the rules, he knows he's 9 years old now.
We should be able to assess on the ground on a day-by-day basis whether what we're dealing with here is a question of free speech or a fomenting terrorist threat.
What happens when a parent is threatening or frightening? Is he being aggressive or simply concerned when he demands the best for his child? Our expert panel discuss an imaginary case study involving parents who are vocal and determined. The moderator is Mike Baker.
Well, hello everyone. I want to introduce you to a young lad. His name is Jim Feckles. He's 6 years old. He's one of a large family, 6 children in the family, and they want to go on a family holiday to Disneyland. Now the trouble is, the only time they can afford to go on holiday, you've probably guessed it, is during term time. Now, Anne Heath, you're the primary school teacher who's lucky enough to have young Jim in your class. Are you going to let him go on holiday?
Well, what I would need to do is first of all check his attendance record, and if he is attending very well, over 95% attendance, then I would consider it.
OK. Sue Seifert, you're the head teacher of this primary school. What's your policy? Do you willingly let people go on holiday during term? Particularly in this case, they can't afford to go any other time, and actually this family really could do with a holiday.
Of course I'd let them go. Firstly, while we're saying that education only happens in the classroom, actually going to Disney World might be a wonderful education. We might get more out of them when they come back.
At least 2 of this family actually are due to be taking SATs in the time they'd be away. Does that make a difference?
No. What are SATs? We test our children too much, actually. So, no. As I say, education is beyond SATs, it's beyond the classroom.
OK. Peter Kessler, you are the governor at the school. Are you really happy with this very easy approach to saying people can go off on holiday whenever they want? I mean, surely everyone's going to start doing it.
I'm absolutely fine with people going on holiday, and I don't agree with people being forced to stay in school just to keep the numbers up. Where I draw the line is Disneyland. I doubt whether going to Disneyland would really be a valuable educational experience. If we're in a city, getting out to the hills could be a lot more useful and educational.
Educational value of the trip would make a difference to you?
Yeah. I just wanted to make one point about this attitude to not letting them go away. Are we supposed to be policemen for the government, or are we supposed to be educators for our young? Worrying about them complying with the rules and taking time out of class. I think we should be thinking about what the children will benefit from until somebody comes and taps us on the shoulder.
OK. Well, let's introduce you to another member of the family, Arnie Feckles. He's 13. He's in the secondary school. And Judy Gemmell, you're the deputy head at the school. What's your position on this? Would just 2 weeks holiday, Disneyland, middle of term time. Are you willing to let them go?
Not without a struggle. If they're not there, we can't teach them, and they can fall back quite considerably. And if the attendance was poor, and if there had been other requests, then I would recommend to the head that we declined this, and they might go ahead anyway, but it would be then on record.
OK, Linda Austin, you're the head teacher, so obviously it's going to arrive at you as well.
My view would be I'd be strongly discouraging them to go away and take them away on holiday. I would need to point out that if they were not back in the school within 2 weeks, then their child would lose their place from the school, and as there is a waiting list in their particular year group, it could well be that the child doesn't actually is able to come back to the school.
Right, we're going to move on because we've got another problem on the horizon. Rosie Strident is another 6-year-old, same class as Jim, Anne, and she is also wanting to go on holiday, or at least her parents are. They are going to go somewhere really educational, going on a trip to ancient Greece. Does that make you a little bit more favourably inclined to letting them go because they're going to do something much more educational?
No, it wouldn't make me favourably inclined because it is taking time out of term time. So really, it's the same thing.
OK, let's see. Sue Seifert, you've actually had a little bit of to and fro correspondence with Rosie's dad about this, and it sounds in the end you're obviously going to let him go. But You just notice one thing, the address that he's been writing from is actually not the address that they gave when they were getting Rosie into the school, only a few weeks ago at the beginning of the term. In other words, they've clearly been using a false address in order to get into your wonderful school. Are you going to do anything about it now?
I would challenge the parents on that, yeah.
OK, and it turns out that they have used a false address, but Rosie's settled into the school, OK, 4 or 5 weeks. Has she got to go?
I'm not, it's the child, not the parent, and actually I wouldn't do it to Rosie. I mean, I'd be furious with the parents, of course, but I can't do that to little Rosie.
So they've won in a sense, haven't they?
In a sense, yes.
The cheaters won.
But in a sense that, you know, we are there for the children, and if the parents have cheated, and you will, I'd blow into them, I'd lay into them, and I might not let them go to Greece on their holiday, actually.
I wonder if you might punish them in that way.
I might say to them, I'll go down the road to the Education Authority, but no. If little Rosie had settled in, she's got friends and she's there, you can't punish the child for the parents' mistakes.
OK. Well, let's turn our attention to Arnie now. And Mark Edwards-Jones is a secondary school teacher. You're the lucky person to have him in your class. He's on his way into school and he's got one of these BB guns. I don't know if you know about them. They're sort of a pellet firing gun. They're not illegal, but they can be dangerous if used really close to. And you're in the playground and you see him just outside beyond the school gates, and he takes a shot at a fellow pupil, rather close range, hits him in the face, luckily just misses the eye, but you know, could be very serious. What are you going to do?
I'm going to follow that up as a disciplinary matter.
Okay, so immediately what are you going to do as he walks in through the school gates?
Well, I'm going to wait until he reaches my room and then I'm going to speak to him.
Right, you're not going to head him off before that and take the BB gun off him?
No, I wouldn't know if it was a BB gun.
Well, you saw it was a pellet spatting. I think you know it's not a real gun. We don't want to terrify you too much.
In that case, yes, I'd wait until he came to my classroom.
Right, OK. Judy, are you worried at all that this incident took place outside the school gates? Does it make any difference?
It wouldn't make any difference in how I would want to deal with it. If it came down to a question of legality, I'd have to take advice. But if it was a pupil of mine firing a pellet gun at another pupil of mine on his way into school, I would think it was a matter for the school to deal with.
OK, well, let's turn to your head teacher, Linda Austin. Where is the school's jurisdiction? Where does it end? I mean, if an incident like this takes place just outside the school gates, is that something you should deal with? Morally,
it's something I should deal with. I know that the law is slightly different on that, but morally I feel it's my responsibility because my students are just outside the gate. Their behaviour, as far as I'm concerned, is still my responsibility.
What about if it's a mile away but he's still on his way into school? Is that still?
I would still deal with it, yeah. Yes.
OK. Anita Chopra, you are a lawyer. Where does her jurisdiction stop and begin in this respect? Can you give her any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a clear-cut case in terms of incidents that occur outside the school. I think if it's, you know, literally just outside and you've actually witnessed it, then I think there is a duty on you to act, particularly also if the pupils are wearing school uniform, they're easily identifiable.
So uniform makes a difference?
Yes, I think so.
OK, let's turn to our school-attached police officer, Mike Kearns. What would you be doing in those circumstances if you had been in the playground at the moment you saw Arnie firing this gun just outside the playground gates?
Immediate action would have to be taken to remove the weapon from him, and obviously, depending on what way the information had come to the school, liaise with the head teacher.
OK. Well, so that's the action that's been taken. The gun's been removed. OK, I'm now Arnie's dad, and I'm pretty furious, and I've marched into the school, and I've come to your office, Linda. And I say, what are you doing? This happened outside the school. It's none of your business. I hope you're going to give him his gun back.
I would sit him down and wait until he's...
I'm not going to sit down. I'm far too cross to sit down.
Well, then I would hope that we could encourage you to have a rational discussion, because if that is not going to be possible, then I'm going to delay our meeting and discussing with you until you are in a frame of mind.
But surely it's theft. You know, effectively, you took that gun. It's his gun. It happened outside school. It would be different, I guess, if it had happened inside the school. I think you need to give it back.
What I would have done before I had my conversation with you or with the parent would be to check with the policeman as to how actual serious the gun was.
Well, let's talk to Mike, because Mike is standing just outside your office as it happens, and he hears these raised voices. You have to remember this is not a real gun. This is, you know, effectively a toy gun. They fire pellets like, you know, paint pellets and so on. And he's 13. Aren't we overreacting a bit here?
Just the very fact that it is a gun shaped like a gun, BB gun or otherwise, we'd have to establish what exactly it was. And I think a very crucial point is brought up there. in terms of the discretion of the police officer who's actually dealing with the matter. The more police that are actually placed in schools sometimes can lead to an escalation of dealing with minor matters by, if you like, using the hammer to crack a nut.
Well, look, I'm Arnie's dad. I'm not very happy. I've been into the school. You're not going to give the gun back. You still seem to think it's far more serious than I do, and I say it happened outside school. So I've turned up to my lawyer. And we've got a strong case, haven't we?
Well, I think you've got to be reasonable. I mean, if it is a weapon that can cause harm, then I think you've got to appreciate that perhaps it was a sensible thing to do. You can discuss it with the head teacher afterwards. We can put some correspondence to them.
I can't sue them, then I can't.
I'm afraid not at this stage.
Very disappointed. I might be finding another lawyer, actually. Anyway, let's say time passes and we move on a little bit, and let's focus back on the primary school for a moment, because Jim is still in your class, and he's a very boisterous boy. You've told him many times, to slow down because he's always crashing into people. And I'm afraid he has to crash into somebody else again, and he's knocked over, Rosie it is this time, knocked her flying in the playground, and she's actually quite seriously hurt, probably going to have to go to casualty, at least for a checkup. Now, the problem is, no adults saw the incident. So what are you going to do about Jim? Are you going to have a talking to with him?
Oh, of course, I would talk to him and ask him exactly his version of the events and write that down. Obviously speak to Rosie as well when she's come back from casualty.
Yes.
And hear her version of the events and speak to any children who were playing around in that area who may have seen it as well and piece that together.
What about Jim's dad, who we know pretty scary character? Would you talk to him? I mean, be honest, would you rather not?
I would talk to him if I really felt that Jim was acting, he was out of control.
OK. Sue Seaford, as the head teacher, will you talk to Jim's dad?
Oh, I certainly will talk
You're
to
not scared
Jim's.
of him?
I am certainly
He should probably be scared of you.
Yes. I think I'd have Jim's dad in the office, but I'd have the teacher with me. And I wouldn't be talking about punishment, or I'd be talking about the difficulties Jim had and how can we all work together to help him being less boisterous. And I may suggest things he may say absolutely no to and start screaming and shouting about, but I'll say to him, look, that's my opinion, and I think you should take it because I'm a lot older than you.
So you're not going to punish Jim? OK, well
we don't, until we know exactly what happens, but, will punishing Jim stop him doing what he keeps doing?
OK, well, I'm Rosie's dad now. It's my daughter, of course, who's been knocked over. And I've come into your office now. I don't shout and scream, but I'm pretty pushy, actually. And I'm not at all happy that you're not taking any action against Jim to make sure he stops it.
Yeah, well, obviously a very reasonable middle-class man, I'd say to him, exactly what punishment would you like me to do? Maybe I could borrow his brother's gun and do some damage there. But no, I think I'd say to the dad, look, we are dealing with this. If he's a reasonable man, I'd be saying, look,
I'm afraid I'm not a reasonable person.
Well, then if you're not,
like
I'd be
parents.
saying to him that Jim obviously has difficulties and problems. It's very unfortunate that Rosie got hurt. We will be dealing with it. And if he says, how are you going to deal with it, I'll say, that I will tell you maybe later, or I may not tell you.
Well, that's all very well, but actually I'm not really interested in Jim's difficulties. I'm only interested in my daughter's safety.
Absolutely.
But you're still not going to punish him. And what's more, actually, I want Jim moved to another class.
Can't do.
Can't do.
No, can't. No,
OK,
can't
well,
do.
I'm going to go and talk to the governor. Peter, you've heard about this incident at the school.
Yes,
poor Rosie,
terrible.
terribly shaken up. And I had no satisfaction whatsoever from the head teacher. Remember, we did elect you as the parent governor. Are you going to represent us?
Unfortunately, what Jim needs is not punishment.
But I'm not interested in Jim. It's my daughter and the other children I'm concerned
If we
about.
can improve Jim, then we improve life for your daughter and all the other children. Jim gets a lot of punishment at home already, and look at the effect it's having. Now, what Jim and his family need is help and support, and what we're going to try and put in place as a Board of Governors is a system that will actually help them and other families like them. But moving Jim around is just, NIMBYism. It doesn't solve anything at all.
OK. As Rosie's dad, I'm going to try a different approach.
I'm going to try and persuade you that what you want is not going to get what you really need.
OK. Well, I'm still going to try a different approach, which is I'm going to go around and get a petition up amongst other parents at the school? Because I know others are worried about Jim, and I mean, this could become very serious. A large number of parents, they've only just begun. Surely there's a point in which you need to listen to what the parents are saying.
We are listening, but sometimes, you know, Jim has rights as well. And I do think that at that point I would ask somebody from the Education Authority to come in and talk with the parents with me, so that they don't just think it's a school conspiracy.
Okay, well, let's move on a little bit. And we're still really having a bit of an investigation into this incident that happened in the playground. And actually, you know, because she's a colleague of yours, that the reason why the teacher didn't see anything was that she is a diabetic, and she just had to go in and do something about her blood sugar. She nipped out of the playground just for a couple of minutes just to get a drink, just to get herself back in. But I'm afraid that was exactly when this incident happened. She's confided in you. What are you going to do?
Well, I would then take that to her line manager and discuss it you know, obviously confidentially, because there would be clear procedures in place for that. That if you do have to nip away from caring for the children, that there should be somebody to cover for you to do that. If she clearly wasn't able to find that cover in that under those circumstances, I'm afraid I would then have to go back and speak to the head teacher.
Okay, well, let's find out from the head teacher. Is this a disciplinary matter, first of all?
No.
It's not. Okay. What about the issue, because we've still got Rosie's dad still perhaps thinking about taking some sort of legal action. Are you going to admit that the teacher had left her post? You can turn to your lawyer if you like.
I may have to, yeah.
Yes, okay.
I mean, the point is, the whole time it's about being honest with people and telling the truth. And if you're straightforward and honest, on the whole, they react pretty well.
So your inclination is to be honest,
Yeah.
but let's just check with Anita. Now you're advising the school. So the situation is that this teacher, just at the moment that incident happened, she did leave her post for, you know, understandable reasons. What should happen? Should that now information be passed to Rosie's dad, the father of the girl who was knocked over?
I think it depends on the action that Rosie's dad takes. I mean, playing, you know, sort of the both
He's threatening possible legal action.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, I mean, he would want an investigation into what happened. The school, we would have to then provide that information. Whether we admit it or not would depend on how we're going to resolve matters. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, we're going to go and sue in for negligence and we'll get a massive payout, but it actually, in the real world, doesn't actually work that way. And, you know, you'd have to show many things, long-term damage, and I often find that parents just tend to want to get an apology or just to be sat down and communicated with.
Well, let's hope that works out. But in a word, would you release this information to Rosie's dad? Yes or no, that the teacher was not at her post?
No.
You wouldn't
No,
reveal?
if I was acting for the school, no.
Okay. Well, time passes and we move on and things have settled down a little bit until another incident in your class, Anne. I don't know what it is about your class. But Jim is now 7. You've still got him. And there's a newly arrived Muslim pupil in your class. And I'm afraid Jim makes very racist and offensive comments to him in the classroom. First of all, what are you going to do immediately?
Well, immediately I'd follow the behaviour policy, and I would speak to Jim in line with that and give him the sanctions that's outlined within it.
Well, he says when you speak to him that it's only actually what his mum and dad say, you know. And you know that actually, it's just copying their behaviour. So are you going to talk to them again, knowing that they're jolly difficult parents?
Yes, I would.
You really are going
have
to steel
address
yourself for
it.
that?
I would have to.
Because it's not going to be nice.
No, I know it wouldn't be nice, but it's necessary.
Okay. Sue, do you back that up? Is it important to talk to the parents of that situation?
Yes, the parents would be in, Jim would be spoken to, and we'd be kind of trying to look at our equal opportunities policy, look at our anti-racist policy again, saying...
But do you really think that's going to have any effect on these parents?
Well, no, but I think what it will have an effect, it will make me feel better for a start, and it will make the parents of the other child, the Muslim child, feel better, and it will also make it very clear to his parents that we don't accept that, and actually I would tell them it's ignorance, and how they react to that is their business. But I would tell them what my views are.
Let's move on into the secondary school now, and a slightly different situation. This is in your class, Mark, and you're having a discussion about terrorism, and as it happens, it comes round to the London bombings, and there's a Muslim pupil in your class, and he says, my dad says those London bombers are all heroes and martyrs. Are you going to do anything at this moment, straight away in the classroom?
Well, I think the rest of the class would probably react to that quite interestingly. So,
But what about you as a teacher?
I would manipulate and manage that discussion.
Mike, if that comment had been made, someone says this about their father, in the school, do you think you should be told about that? Is that something the police ought to know about?
I would like to know if that behaviour, is happening, because again we come back to the approach. Do we want to go down an immediate legal route where there are perhaps offences that could be, if you like, the behaviour could meet a breach of the law. If I was asked by the school as a community police officer, I would certainly have to record that as an allegation of a potential racial incident.
Would you go and talk to the father, for example?
Absolutely.
You would?
Yeah.
OK. Let's just check then with Linda Austin as the head teacher. Would you want to talk to the father, or are you going to leave this entirely to the police?
Yes, I would want to talk to his father.
Okay.
And I would want to explain why I find, the school, it's inappropriate to say that kind of thing within our school.
OK, let's just check with the school's lawyer. Should that sort of comment, we don't know how true or not, otherwise it is, should it be passed on?
I'm not sure whether it should be passed on. I think a bit of investigation, talking to the child, talking to the parents certainly, and saying that if it's to happen again, then they may have to take further action. I think if it's an isolated incident, then I think the school's approach should be, let's investigate, make a note, and if it happens again, then perhaps take it that one step further.
OK, Linda, you decide that you will see the father, and he comes in, and you're ready for perhaps a difficult confrontation, and you explain what the boy has said in class. Perhaps slightly to your surprise, because actually nobody's really questioned whether the boy was telling the truth or not. The father says, no, that's not my view at all. But it is the view of my son, and he's been radicalised by his friends at your school. I'm really worried about it. Now what are you going to do?
Well, I'd be worried about it too.
Good.
And what I would want to do is I would want to get that group of, I would want to find out which particular youngsters are involved, and I would want to deal with them either individually or as a group, and talk through with them as to why it's inappropriate to have those particular viewpoints.
OK, let's bring in Peter Kessler, who's a governor. He's very versatile. He's governor at the secondary school as well as the primary school. Is that something that the governors can have any say on, or are you going to leave it entirely to the school and to the police?
We should be able to assess on the ground on a day-by-day basis whether what we're dealing with here is a question of free speech or a fomenting terrorist threat. If we feel, and we can talk to the teachers about this, that what we're dealing with here is a potential threat, then it's a matter for the police to look into. And it's not a matter then for governors to get everybody round a table and talk in a chummy way about. If it stays as a matter of free speech or, rebelliousness, then that's absolutely fine. And even if the father had said it, it's a question of free speech.
OK, thank you. Well, time moves on, and we're back, of course, now with Rosie, and she's gone onto one of these social networking sites that children know very well how to use, and she's been putting in some really offensive and nasty comments about Jim, saying he wets his bed and all that sort of thing. Of course, it's probably revenge for having been knocked over in the classroom earlier. But she's doing all this from her computer at home, not from school. So do you have any jurisdiction on this?
Well, it's called bullying, isn't it? And I think I'd have Dad and Mum in and say, this is not on, and your daughter is actually bullying Jim. And, you have complained in the past about Jim bullying your daughter when the tables are turned, and I suggest it stops. And actually what I would do, which I have done, is I'd get the child there and then, I'd get on my computer, get the IT technician in, and we'd wipe it there and then from the school. OK, well, Jim is very hurt by these comments.
Yeah. And in fact, his parents are furious as well.
Ah.
They say, actually, I'm going to go round, says Jim, I'm going to go round and sort out that family. And he marches off. Are you going to get on the phone quickly and warn the Stridents he's on the way? Are you going to ask Mike, your police officer, to chase after him?
Actually, there's no hope in them finding Rose's parents, as they gave me a false address at the beginning.
No, they do know where they live because they're near neighbours. But a nice try.
Okay.
And they're not in ancient Greece either.
Yeah, I would advise Jim's parents to let me deal with it, and that, in fact, if I deal with it, I do a far better job than they ever could by screaming and shouting. And I hope that by then my relationships with Jim's parents were such that they'd actually say, OK, you deal with it, we trust you enough to do it. But I would phone, if I thought they were marching over there, I would actually phone and say, look, they are coming and they're very angry.
Well, time passes and we move on to a new school year, and you all think, well, we had a pretty hard last year. I'm sure things are going to be better this year. And then, Linda, you get the information that both Rosie's dad and Jim's dad have decided to stand for election as parent governors. What's your reaction? Apart from hysterical laughter.
Well, you know, there may be other people standing as well. On the other hand...
Are you going to sabotage their chances? Because you could, by putting word about how difficult they are.
Well, I don't think I can do that directly.
All right, Peter, how do you feel about it? I mean,
I'm resigning.
You're resigning, are you? You're not going to stay?
I have to say, I would far rather not have them on the governing body. Got to remember, all of this shenanigans has been going on for 3 or 4 years now. So they both of them are very well known in the school. They are always causing trouble. Let's sit back and see what happens. Right? If they are elected, so we'll cope with them. Okay, and maybe it'll be the making of them. But I don't want to influence it one way or the other.
Sue, you have great optimistic faith in human nature.
Well, I just think it's their democratic right to actually stand, and their democratic right, if they get elected, to become governors. If they become pains in the neck, I know governing bodies themselves, if it's an individual, that governing body will sort it. But actually, it could well be the making of them both, and let them come.
Well, on that optimistic note, that they might come on the board and might become helpful rather than difficult parents, thank you all very much.